Hello and welcome to the short Vort on parshiyos Behaaloscha. Programming note, due to my travel schedule, I may have limited access to the distribution of the short Vort during the next few weeks, so please be proactive, whether going directly to the Dvarman 2 YouTube channel or the WhatsApp or some other way to make sure that you don't miss out the short Vort. This week, I have two different parts of my short Vort. The first will be based on the Novominsker Rebbe's Divrei Torah of Yaakov Perlow Zatzal, and then I'll have a machshava of mine that actually connects to his machshava. So in this week's parsha in Behaaloscha, we have a continuation of some sins of the Jews in the Dar Hamidbar. We have the misonanim, those that complained about to Moshe Rabbeinu and about Hashem. In the next week parsha in Shlach, we're going to have the Meraglim, followed by Korach and his rebellion. So Perlow talks about one time that the Kotzker Rebbe saw his friend, the Rebbe of Vorke, shortly after Shavuos, which is these parshiyos, and he was in a downbeat mood. So the Kotzker asked the Rebbe of Vorke, why are you upset? So the response he received was that because as we look through the parshiyos, what's happening with the Dar Hamidbar, the generation that was in the desert coming out of Egypt, that they had all these different sins recorded, the misonanim and the Meraglim and Korach and others. And how are we supposed to deal with this? It's pretty, downbeat. So the Kotzker Rebbe answered, and he'll say new, but in English he'll say that the averos of these people were recorded in the Torah. But what about our mitzvos that we do? How's that going to be recorded? What the Kotzker meant was that the averos of the Dar Hamidbar were recorded because they didn't end there. They're a lesson for us thousands of years later, how to behave. But he added that more importantly is to worry about how our mitzvah is going to be recorded. So the Novominsker Rebbe said that he had an answer to what the Kotzker Rebbe worried about how our mitzvahs were recorded, because he found a midrash in Vayikra Rabbah that said about the greatness of the mitzvahs that the personalities in Tanakh did, and that people like Reuven, who he saved Yosef from his brothers. But if he had realized that he'd be recorded his actions in the Torah, he would have had a whole celebration and taken Yosef out on his shoulders. So he didn't realize the greatness of what he did, and that would be recorded. So the mitzvah, that's for the people in Tanakh. What about our generations? The midrash continues and says that our mitzvos will be recorded by Eliyahu Hanavi and Melech HaMashiach, because it's our mitzvos that are going to bring the Geula Shlema that these two are tasked with bringing for us. And therefore, we have to realize that our mitzvos are in fact being recorded, and we should take that attitude when we do our mitzvos. Now, I noticed another avera more in a specific individual that was being done at the end of the parsha, and that's Miriam. She said lashon hara about her brother Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's recorded that she waited, the Bnei Yisrael waited 7 days for her while she had tsaras as a punishment for her lashon hara. And I noticed a pattern, because about 80 years beforehand, she talked about her father who separated from her mother and said, why are you getting separated from your wife? And now, 80 years after that, she's talking to Aaron about, why is Moshe Rabbeinu separating from his wife, just like our father did? She didn't say that last few words, but I'm making that point that the same theme that is there. Yet the first one, she was considered to have done a mitzvah, and the second one, she was punished as she got an avera. They're both really the same type of Musar lesson. You're great, but don't leave your spouse. Stay married. So why was one considered good and not? I'd like to suggest that it's teaching us lessons about lashon hara. In the first case, by Amram, by her father, she told him directly. She made the point. It says, "You're worse than Paro. Get back together." But she didn't tell someone else lashon hara, and therefore the reward was that Moshe Rabbeinu was born, and Moshe was the leader who took us out of Egypt, something that we celebrate to this very day. That's the whole chain reaction from her. However, the second case, where she told a third party, her brother Aaron, about first party, Moshe, she should have said directly to Moshe Rabbeinu. But since she didn't, that constituted an improper lashon hara, even though her motives were for good, for l'to eles. And the result of that was that she was punished, that the Klal Yisrael had to wait 7 days until it could travel again because she had tzaras. And even if we can extend it further, that the Meraglim, the next parsha, they didn't learn a lesson about lashon hara, not saying lashon hara from her, and therefore they were punished with their death and the Jews staying in the desert for 40 years. And we also had the result, we had the crying of Tisha B'Av, which we have suffering, that we suffer the Doros, in contrast to the Yitzias Mitzrayim that we had from the beginning. So the lesson here is our mitzvos count, and they're being recorded. We should act properly, and even better than we were planning to otherwise. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful Shabbos.